that means that you're paying more tax than you actually owe.
That was technically a business expense for me.
You then know that's an immediate trigger. You've got to pay quarterly taxes the following year. And guess what? Paying yourself should be factored into that.
So if you're like just now getting started with YouTube, you're not making any money, don't worry about it.
Taxes are disgusting. We hate them. It is a waste of your time. I promise you can be making money doing something else.
I'm just sharing my mistakes, man. Before we get into all of the good stuff, talking about finances, taxes, managing your money, all of that, I mean, these are all questions you guys have asked me, so I'm so glad that I got Stevie to come on my channel to share her knowledge. But before we get into it, one, grab yourself a pen, some paper, and jot down notes. This is the information that I wish I had when I was getting started with my YouTube channel, with my brand in general. You'll see and hear in this video all of the mistakes that I made along the way. And I want you guys to learn from my mistakes and get the right information, especially if you are just now getting started. But the second thing is, we are going to talk a lot about QuickBooks. And I've mentioned QuickBooks a couple of times here on my channel. I've been using that platform for years to manage it's not really managing my money. It's like an accounting system, bookkeeping system that helps you to track all of your income and your expenses. And Stevie and I are going to dive into that. But I wanted to let you guys know that Stevie is coming out with a course to help you guys better understand how to use QuickBooks. So if you are brand new to the platform or if you're thinking about getting started, I highly recommend checking out her course, and she is being so freaking sweet and offering you guys 15% off if you use the coupon code Cathrin. So go check it out. I'll include a link in the description bar down below. But without further ado, let's just chat with Stevie about, oh my gosh, guys, so many good things. We talk about taxes, becoming an LLC, expenses, income, keeping records. There's a lot that goes into it. So I know you guys are gonna get value from this. If you haven't already, grab your freaking pen and paper and let's just go ahead and get to it. Hey guys, what is up? And welcome back to my channel. This is so crazy. You're my first official guest. Yay! I'm so excited, but you guys ask me a ton of questions ever since I first mentioned that I pay taxes quarterly, that I use QuickBooks, and just like anything to do with finances. I get so many questions, and my fallback has always been, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a CPA, I am not a professional, so I can only share my experiences and not really my advice. So
that's where I come in.
Yes, I'm so excited. If you want to introduce yourself, and I'll have all the links to her, guys, included in the description bar down below. So if you want to follow her, definitely do. She's got a lot of helpful information. But
hey everyone, I'm Stevie Jones. I own an accounting business called Balanced by Stevie, and I work specifically with freelancers and small business owners to try to help them understand exactly what their financial obligations are, or how they should be recording their transactions, which we'll get into. I know that sounds like terrible, and why they need to do that. And so I'm really passionate about it, and I'm just here to try to help if I can.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, if you guys have any other questions or anything, you can message Stevie on Instagram or whatever. But I did try to take your questions on Instagram stories, so we like based our outline for this video around you guys. So I'm hoping this is going to be really helpful.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, I just want to start off by saying that if you are a YouTuber, congratulations, you're a business owner. And what that means is that you have income and expenses that you absolutely have to be tracking for your business. And here's why. There are two reasons. Number one, you have taxes you have to pay. Womp, womp, womp. I get it. It's disgusting, right? Taxes are disgusting. We hate them. Two, you want to be able to see exactly how your business is performing. You want to know the health of your business. And you would be surprised, I'm telling you, you'd be so shocked at how many people are generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in their business, and they're not sure exactly what their profit is. And when I say profit, that means income less expenses. That number you're left with at the bottom, that's key. And so keeping your books, which means just keeping track of your transactions, will help you identify that number.
Yeah, and that's something that I do and I share with you guys in my income reports, my analytic reports, when I'm like, this is how much money I'm making from each place. I usually don't share my expenses to share like what my net profit is, and I think sometimes it can be surprising to be like, oh, you're making this much money.
Why not, Cathrin?
Because there's a lot of expenses that go into it, and it's a lot. And it gets complicated, because I think it's a lot easier for people to see, oh, this is how much money I'm making, but in reality I have my expenses, and then I have taxes, which we're going to get into, so it's like, the money you guys see, it's not the money that I get to keep.
Right.
So I also think that this is such an important conversation
Yes.
because I don't know if a lot of people realize that.
Yes. So disclaimer, when you see people on social media or on YouTube and they say, I'm making $20,000 a month.
$24,878. That's how much money ended up hitting my bank account in September.
That's probably just their revenue. That is just the money they're bringing in, but they're not telling you everything that they have to subtract from that to tell you what their take-home pay is.
Yeah, which I'll fully admit, that's 100% what I do. When you guys see those videos, that's how much money I'm making, and I'm going to do one at the end of the year sharing how much money I spent on my business because I also think it's good to see that side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I definitely want to advise all of you to do, have a separate business bank account. You do, right, Cathrin?
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. This is so important, and I will tell you, it will save you hours and hours when it comes to recording your transactions.
Oh my gosh. Can I just share my experience?
Absolutely.
So I got started and I ran it out of my personal bank account. I know. And it's not fun and it's so hard. And it was terrible because I even did like my personal credit card. So I had to decipher what was personal expenses, what were business expenses. And it was an absolute mess. It's separating that, getting a business credit card, and then like I have a personal credit card. It makes it so much easier in QuickBooks, and then
absolutely.
I made that mistake.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of QuickBooks, I think it is a really great system to use for your business. And one of the features that it has is when you have a business bank account for your business, you can connect it to your QuickBooks, which is just an accounting system. It's a software for your accounting system. And all of your transactions from your business just funnel into that accounting system. Yeah. And then you have them there. And that's where that's the base of where you can start your bookkeeping. And it is so much easier if you have a separate bank account. Because if you're paying for things out of your personal account, that's not connected to your accounting system. So you have to go dig through your bank statements, maybe through your receipts, and figure out what you actually spent. It is a waste of your time. I promise you can be making money doing something else. Yeah.
Or I had my personal bank account set up with my QuickBooks, so then every transaction was funneled through. So I'm just sharing my mistakes, man. So I had to decipher, this is actually a business expense. Okay, this is not. And no, it was a mess. So tip 1 for you guys, get a business bank account for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So I just recently started my business last year, and I went through the process of trying to figure out which bank I wanted to use for my business. And there are some questions that I discovered that you need to actually ask the bank when you're opening a business bank account. And I have a blog post about this specifically that will tell you 6 specific questions to ask when you're opening a business bank account. So Cathrin will make sure you guys have that. Yeah,
I'm going to link to it in the description bar down below. But just as a question, so if someone's starting their YouTube channel, they may not get monetized, they may not make money for their first year. Yeah. Should they open a bank account right away? Because there's probably fees and stuff that go with it.
The reason that I say yes is because you want to utilize every single expense as a tax deduction, okay? If you have those all centered in one bank account, at the end of the year when it comes to filing your taxes, you want to get every single benefit you can from spending money on things that relate specifically to your business.
Yeah, which we're going to dive into. Yeah. Expenses, deductions, write-offs, all of it. So, a fancy girl is right at our feet too, guys.
Okay, and Cathrin, do you have an LLC for your business?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Sorry about fancy. But yes, I do. It took me a little while to get one, but yes.
I recommend it, and here's why. It protects your personal assets, okay? That's really the only reason that it's there. And this is a question I get really often, and Cathrin actually brought this up when we were talking before we started filming, how your LLC affects your taxes. Yes. It doesn't at all. So an LLC is only, picture it as like this blanket that you put over your personal assets. So if someone wants to file a lawsuit against your business, which you're thinking, God, that would never happen to me. Guys, it happens, I promise. They can't come after your personal bank account. They can't come after your house. They can't come after any of your personal assets. They can only come after, so to speak, your business assets. So it's very important that you have an LLC, and it's not very expensive to form, and it doesn't take a lot of time.
So when should someone get an LLC? Would you say like immediately?
As soon as you're serious about your business.
Okay.
So if you're just playing around and this is kind of a hobby and you're not really sure if it's going to amount to anything, I don't necessarily think I would recommend doing it at that point. But the second that you realize, oh my gosh, this can actually be a job.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. Get an LLC. Really no exceptions. Just get it.
Yeah. We're going to dive into taxes. And I know that this is like daunting, but we're also going to talk about expenses and all of that stuff because I get a lot of questions like what can be expensed? What do I expense for my business? What does it mean to have a deduction, a write-off, all of that stuff? So let's first talk about taxes and we'll dive into like all the nitty-gritty.
Yes.
Why someone has to pay taxes. Because I think, like, I first got started working at 16 or, like, the earliest I could.
Yeah.
I didn't really know that taxes were coming out of my paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
So then once you start working for yourself, I don't think a lot of people realize that then you have to pay taxes.
Yes. That's actually a really great question. That's a really great question. Okay, so when you are working a corporate job, let's just say, you're getting a paycheck. Mm-hmm. They're withholding taxes from your paycheck.
Yes.
When you're in business for yourself, when you're a YouTuber, remember you own a business. That means that no one is withholding any taxes from your paycheck. So it's all on you to make sure that you have enough to remit those taxes at the end of the year. No one's withholding them for you.
Yeah.
And that self-employment tax rate is 15%. That's the amount that your net profit is taxed at on your tax return. So when you first start doing business, you are considered, and this is a gross word, guys, please don't just like completely disregard anything I say because I use gross words, but you are considered a sole proprietor, okay? Mm-hmm. That just means that your income from your business is reported on your personal income tax return, okay?
Yeah.
And it also means that the net profit, so I said income, let me back that up. The net profit from your business is reported on your personal income tax return.
Yes.
And it is actually subject to a 15% tax rate. So that means that every single expense that you incur in your business, anything that you pay for that's related to your business, you want to book that so that it decreases that bottom line net profit so that it decreases your tax liability.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let's just like put it into baby terms, guys. You have money coming in. You want to also have money going out because then that's what you're taxed on. So I think you may be like, oh no, I want to keep all of my money. I want to save all of my money. I don't want to invest it back in my business, but it's actually smart to have expenses.
Yes, to a certain extent.
Yes.
So you want to be profiting, obviously, because that means you can pay yourself. But I think what Catherine's getting at here is that you want to make sure that you're not going out and purchasing something maybe on your personal bank account or credit card account and you're not including it on your tax return as a deduction.
Yeah.
That means that you're paying more tax than you actually owe. And that is like what I live to prevent. Here's the key thing. When you have expenses in your business, well, actually, Cathrin, you'd be a great source here. What are some examples of expenses in your YouTube business?
So I've got some obvious ones that you guys would know about, like my camera, my tripod, lighting equipment, like anything to actually create my YouTube videos, that is an expense. So even I just created a video on Final Cut Pro, spending $300 on Final Cut Pro, that's an expense for my business. I also got a question about like my laptop, my computers and stuff. I buy them for my business, I use them for my business, so those are like expenses.
Perfect.
Besides that, so like I pay for QuickBooks every month.
Yes.
That's an expense for my business. When I used to work at coffee shops previously, now that gets a little bit complicated, but food or like the coffee that I was getting, that was technically a business expense for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to bring up a couple of other deductions that you can take on your tax return that a lot of people maybe they're not really aware of here. Yeah. And I just want to caveat this with, if you can afford to engage a tax expert, it is 100% worth the money because they will make sure that you are utilizing every single tax benefit that's available to you.
Yeah.
So a couple of other deductions that I want to make sure that you guys know about. Number one, you can deduct your mileage for your car that you're using for your business. If you are driving places for your business, maybe you have a meeting or something of that nature.
Or let's say like someone's creating a YouTube video and they're going somewhere specifically for that YouTube video, they can write off the
mileage. The mileage. So what the IRS says is that Just, I know.
The IRS.
I crinkle my nose when I say IRS. What they say is that all you have to do is track the amount of miles that you drive and know what the business purpose was for that drive. And then they'll give you a rate that you can then multiply the miles by. But anyway.
Technicality of
it. All you need to know, track your miles. Bottom line, track your miles if you're driving your car for business purposes. Mm-hmm. Another one, cell phones. We know a lot of YouTubers probably use their cell phone a good bit in their business.
Oh my gosh, I mean, I use it all the time for Instagram stories,
exactly.
I use my phone all the time for business.
Exactly. Chances are you're using your phone for both business and personal unless you have a separate business phone. Yeah. So if that's the case, what they allow is that you can write off you can expense a portion of your cell phone bill that's related to your business. So again, just keep track of it because I just want you to be aware and be able to ask the question to your CPA, or if you're using a software to file your own taxes, then they'll probably ask a question that you need to answer, which is, do you use your cell phone for business purposes? If so, what percentage and what amount, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted you guys to be aware.
Okay, so we covered expenses, what they are, why you want them, why you should keep track of them. But how do you keep track of them? QuickBooks, like receipts. I had someone ask on Instagram if I just have an email from Amazon saying my order, is that enough proof that I bought something for my business?
Yes, the answer is yes. So, best practices, keep as many receipts as you can, but just because you lose a receipt or forget to get one doesn't mean that you can't include it as an expense on your tax return. As long as you have proof that you actually paid that amount and you have a business reason behind it, that's enough. That's sufficient. The IRS recognizes that it's a huge burden to have to keep track of every single small receipt. Although, I do try to. But yeah, in the case that you were to get audited, they just want to make sure that you're not making up expenses, out of your head and just saying, yeah, I'd really like for my tax to be less, so I'm going to stick this big old expense in there that's not really an expense at all. But if they see the cash going out, then they know it's a bona fide expense.
Which is a benefit to having, QuickBooks.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it tracks everything. So if they see, I bought a drink at Starbucks and that was actually because I was going to my co-working space. That's another thing. My co-working space is an expense. That transaction is there. It's tracked within QuickBooks and that's...
Yes, absolutely. I can't tell you enough how important it is to have some sort of bookkeeping system or accounting system. And the one that I use and the one that Cathrin uses is QuickBooks. And I really recommend it. I mean, I know it's the name that everyone hears, and so some people tend to want to shy away from it just because it's the most popular one. But it's actually really good, and so I highly recommend it. And I'm going to shamelessly plug my course here. I created a QuickBooks course, and here's why I did it. If Cathrin were to approach me and say, Stevie, I really need you to come look at my QuickBooks and clean it up for me and maybe organize it for me, to make it worth my time, I have to charge her at least $500. A lot of times it's more like $1,000 because it takes a lot of hours for me. Cathrin and I both really enjoy helping people in general. Yeah. I mean, obviously we want to make money, clearly.
Well, we have to. We do this full time, yeah.
Right, exactly. But I really wanted to figure out a way where I could teach all of you how to maintain your QuickBooks and create a QuickBooks database. I was thinking, I don't want to have to charge people this escalated amount, so why don't I just put together a course that will show them how to do it themselves? And you guys, you can do it. It's not that hard. I promise it's not that hard.
Yeah. QuickBooks, I got started, so that's another little tidbit for you guys. And actually something that we were thinking about is can I track all of my income and expenses in Google Sheets, or should I get QuickBooks?
Yes.
So my first year of business, I mean, I think I made maybe $600. I don't remember how much I made the first year, but I was just using Google Sheets.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that many expenses. I barely bought anything for my business because I didn't have that income coming in.
Yes.
So I think I bought my website. That was my thing. I was I have my domain, and that was enough. But I ended up moving to QuickBooks, and it's been a game changer. If I could get sponsored by QuickBooks, that would be just
Same.
Absolutely amazing. But it's a really easy to use platform. So if anyone's oh my gosh, all this finance and accounting and stuff is over my head, QuickBooks is an easy way that you can kind of take control of it and actually monitor, looping it back to the very beginning, the health of your business. So I share with you guys or how much money I'm making from my ads. I don't share sponsorships because I legally can't, but affiliate marketing, my paid products and stuff. And I have it all broken out within my QuickBooks. So I know, oh, from this specific company with affiliate marketing, this is how much money I'm making. And the only reason I can do that is because of QuickBooks.
And that makes me so happy because I preach about that as much as I can. Is a lot of people do have an accounting system where they're maintaining their income and expenses, but they're not paying attention to what's really making their profit. They're not paying attention to that. And so when Cathrin told me that she has all these categories where she's tracking exactly where her income is coming from, it made my heart so happy. Honestly, it really did. And I do go over that in my course, just as an FYI. So I really like to show you exactly how to set up your QuickBooks so that you can see where you're profiting the most. It's extremely helpful. And I will say probably 7 out of 10 clients that I work with don't do this. And so if you do this, I think you'll be ahead of the game.
Yeah, for sure. To me, it's just making sure that I'm spending my time, because my time is the most valuable asset in my opinion. Like, no one can create these YouTube videos for me. Like, no one can sit in front of the camera. So I need to make sure that what I'm spending my time on is actually bringing me money. Like, if my paid products weren't making me money and I was spending all of this time on them, and that actually happened, I had my TCB Vault, which I still get questions about to this day, but I created a membership platform, and I was spending so much time every single month coming out with these videos and resources and stuff, and it was making me barely any money, and I was like, why the heck am I doing this? Like, this, it's just like not worth my time. I could focus on something else and actually grow my business in another way. So we got a little off track there, but we want to loop it back to taxes, because I've mentioned before that I pay quarterly taxes, and I tend to get questions of, do I need to pay quarterly taxes? Like, when did you start paying quarterly taxes? How much do you know how much you have to pay for that? Which, that's a whole another thing. Get an accountant or a tax professional or someone, because that's very complicated. But like, when do people actually need to start paying quarterly taxes? And
that's a really good question. And it's also a question that I get all the time. And so I had to defer to my tax expert, because although I'm really good at identifying a healthy business and showing you how to be a healthy business, I'm not that great at the tax code. So guys,
there's so much that goes into it.
So I have an expert that I refer to. She's like my left-hand woman, and she's awesome. And I asked her, when do you have to pay quarterly taxes? And her response was, if at the end of the year last year, you had to make a payment to the IRS when you filed your tax return, and that payment was $1,000 or more, then you are required to pay quarterly taxes the following year. So if at the end of 2020, you go to file your tax return and you have to make a payment to the IRS and it's $1,000 or more, you then know that's an immediate trigger. You've got to pay quarterly taxes the following year.
So when I first got started, the first year I was in business, like I said, I only made like $600 some. So I didn't actually pay quarterly taxes that year. But then I went full time and I ended up making more money, and I had to, basically. So if you're like just now getting started with YouTube, you're not making any money, don't worry about it. But it's definitely something that you need to consider, because you don't want to not pay your quarterly taxes.
Yeah, agree.
One last question. I feel like we covered a lot, and I hope you guys got a lot from this. But one last question I actually got from one of you on Instagram was, how much should you save? How much should you save for taxes, but also how much should you save? How much should you pay yourself? And how much should you reinvest back into your business? Because here's the thing, I think, well, I don't know what everyone's thinking, but if you hear, oh, I need a ton of expenses because then that kind of takes down how much money I have to pay on taxes, should I spend basically all of my money?
Yeah.
Type of thing, because then I don't have to pay as much in taxes.
Right.
Or like, what's a smart way to actually go about it to make sure you have a healthy business, like we've talked about?
This is the kind of question that I really enjoy answering. So I'm really happy that we're talking about this. And I'm such a dork, I know that. Okay. Yes, you want to be able to have expenses in your business so you can lower your tax liability. But at the end of the day, the reason you have a business is to be able to pay yourself and to be able to live off of that pay, the lifestyle that you want to live. So there are a few rules of thumb, and these are not exactly applicable to everyone. Everyone's tax situation is a little bit different. But I would say these blanket rules should cover you in case you're just wanting to follow some simple guidelines. So when it comes to saving for taxes, when I say saving for taxes, this is what I mean. At the end of the year, you don't want to have generated this income and then paid out all this money, and then all of a sudden you're hit with a tax bill. that you don't have the money to fund and you have to pay it out of your personal account, right?
Yeah. So I've shared my story. I was in like credit card debt. Like I built up like $20,000 of credit card
Happens
debt
to so many
trying to get my business going. The very first time I had to pay estimated quarterly taxes, I didn't save any money. I made a huge mistake. I didn't save any money and I just had a panic attack. And the funny thing is, it was only like $400.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to pay that much.
But if you don't have it, you don't have it.
If you don't have it, you don't have it.
Yeah.
So that was an absolute nightmare for me. And ever since then, I'm like traumatized. And I'm like, no, this money is put away for taxes.
Right.
Like I need to save so that I'm never in that situation again.
Right, absolutely. So general rule of thumb, when you have your bookkeeping system in place, because I know all of you are going to just run and do that right after you watch this.
I need QuickBooks.
Yes.
We should talk about like what plan should someone get on QuickBooks
Yes.
because there's so many options.
Yes, and it can be super confusing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
we
we'll
will
get to that. Okay, guys, so we actually forgot to loop back around to the question about QuickBooks, what QuickBooks plan you should actually have. So it's called Simple Start, and that is the basic beginner plan that you should get started with on QuickBooks. Stevie specifically said, do not get the self-employed. And I remember that I looked at self-employed when I was first getting started, but there's a couple of features that you can't do within self-employed, as well as you can't switch from self-employed over to one of the other plans if you plan on up-leveling your business and you want to get the plus or the advanced version. So if you want to get started with the Simple Start, it's only $25 a month, but I think they have a sale going on where it looks like it's $12.50 a month. So that's really not bad, and it's going to make your life so much easier if you do get QuickBooks.
General rule of thumb, when you're in your QuickBooks database, on either a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, which means every 3 months, look at your net profit on your profit and loss statement. That's the bottom number. So you have all of your income less all of your expenses and then your net profit. Of that amount, multiply it by 15%. That means times 0.15. Take that, set it aside, pretend it's not there. Don't touch it. You could even pay it to yourself, like to your personal bank account.
Yeah.
Just set it aside and make sure it's reserved for taxes only. And that way, at the end of the year, if you're doing that monthly or you're doing that quarterly, at the end of the year, the money's there for you to pay your taxes and you don't have to be hit with this huge bill and then scramble to figure out how to pay it. That's why I recommend setting aside 15% of your net profit and monitor it quarterly or monthly. If you want to get like super technical, do it monthly and set it aside. But I would say probably at least quarterly. Just set it aside for good practice. Let's talk about setting aside funds for times when maybe you have certain months where your income is not as high as it was in previous months.
Oh, 100%. And that's, I mean, my audience sees, especially I share with just even my ads alone, you guys know how much it can fluctuate. And some months I could make $5,000 compared to $10,000. So if I kind of got used to living off of $10,000 a month, I could get myself into some real trouble. So I love this thought that you have.
Yes, absolutely. So most people who are in business for themselves, they do have income that goes like this. So the best thing to do there is make sure you're setting aside a reserve. And what I mean by reserve is it's similar to what you're doing for your taxes, but you want to look at all of the expenses that it costs to run your business. So this would be like monthly recurring expenses, Cathrin, like your QuickBooks subscription, or what other do you have that are like monthly?
I pay for Photoshop monthly.
Okay.
I've got Teachable, Shopify, like all of those stuff. And then I do have, so there are other months, which I think this is also important. Yes, I've got every single month. Here are my expenses. But then there are some things that, like my website just renewed, and that's a couple $100. So having that reserve that you're talking about is so smart.
So the best way to approach this is try to break it down to a monthly amount. Yeah. So try to say, how much am I paying per month for my recurring expenses? This could be, like she said, all of her subscriptions. It could be any insurance that you may have. Anything that you know that regardless of whether or not you have income, you still have to pay. Yeah. And guess what? Paying yourself should be factored into that because we want you to be able to pay yourself even if you didn't have income that month. Yep. And so what you do is you take the monthly amount that you ideally want to pay yourself plus the monthly amount that you pay in expenses to keep your business going. Multiply that by 3. That gives you 3 months worth of funds that you can access in case your income is down 1 month. So I want to just say, this is not something, I'm not saying to go ahead and take a big old chunk of cash and put it aside. I'm
Yes.
saying this is something to work towards.
Yes, over time, every single month, make sure you're
Yes.
saving a certain amount to build that.
Yes. And once you hit that amount, once you've saved enough to cover 3 months worth of your pay plus your expenses, you can stop contributing to that. It's just there for you in case you need to tap it for when your income is not as high as it was before and you need to pay yourself. And then you'll replenish it. But it's just the best way to have a consistent stream of income to yourself, even when your business doesn't have a consistent stream of income.
Yeah. So like in terms of paying yourself, this can get kind of tricky, but one thing that I made a mistake on is I didn't really think about all of my also personal expenses that I had. So like have your monthly personal expenses, and if you have an apartment or if you have a house, like figure out, okay, what is your gas, your electric, your phone bill, your Wi-Fi, like figure out absolutely everything and make sure that you're actually paying yourself the right amount to cover that. As well as then your business expenses while also saving money for taxes.
Right.
Like there's so many things that you have to think about, and I know that this can be like not as much of a fun topic, but it's also so important because I built up credit card debt. Like I was not as smart with my finances, and now I'm like, I never want to get in that situation again, and I'm well prepared to be in like a healthy business state.
Well, if people ask me a lot of times, how much should I be paying myself for my business? And my question is always just another question, or my answer is always just another question back to them, which is, what kind of lifestyle are you living? So how much do you need to get from your business to be able to live that lifestyle?
Yeah, and I've heard other people talk about like having like a lifestyle creep.
Yeah.
So like last year, I was not making the kind of money I'm making with my business now. And yes, I did have a little bit of a lifestyle creep. Like I'm not gonna lie, you guys know I bought a Mercedes-Benz. Like that was that was definitely an upgrade. But you also need to make sure that you are smart and you're not creeping up too high. Because like my income isn't guaranteed. Any month, it's not guaranteed. And it can go up and down like crazy. So you need to make sure that you're being really, really smart with your finances.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other question that Cathrin brought up, and it's one that I get asked all the time, is how much should I reinvest back in my business?
Yes.
And this is so hard because I can tell you right now, so this is the first year of my business, and it is a struggle for me to not put every cent back into the business, right? Because you're banking on yourself. I mean, what you're doing is you're saying, okay, well, this is the long game I'm playing, and it's going to pay off in the future. If your circumstance allows for that, then okay. But if you have a circumstance where you really do need to get paid from your business, which is definitely almost everyone's circumstance, then you need to have some guidelines. And so a general guideline is if you are profiting enough in your business to build up those tax reserves and to set aside enough to cover 3 months worth of your pay and your operating expenses, at that point, you can start reinvesting anything in excess of that back into the business.
So for me, I usually say like all of my camera gear and equipment and stuff, I got over time. And it was like once I was at a different point with them, or like I made more money or whatever, it's not like I went out and I just spent $3,000 on everything. It was slow and it was a gradual process. And I think that's something to consider. Think about what money you have to invest right now. So if you only have $50 that you can invest back in your business or your YouTube channel, like the microphone I'm using is about $50. So you can buy that instead of spending thousands of dollars on a computer. Like you have to really evaluate where you're at right now, what you can invest, and then over time, just make sure that you are investing back in your business. Okay. Is there anything else? I think we got it all. Well, that is it, guys. Thank you so much for asking your questions on Instagram. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
here. Yeah, it was awesome. I'm going to link to everything of hers in the description right down below. We're going to link to that one blog post in particular. I'll also just link to your website, your Instagram, and then when is your QuickBooks course coming out?
It's coming out November 1st, but here's the kicker. There's a limited amount of people that can sign up for this class, and that's because I really want to provide a personal touch to it. So if you're taking the class and you have questions, I'm carving out office hours to answer your specific questions. So that means seating is limited. So I have a wait list, actually.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. This was so great. I'm really hoping that we answered all of your questions. I know that some of this might have been like not the most fun topic, like the IRS, taxes. It's just like, not great, not fun, but also so important because I made a ton of mistakes along the way. So
I did too.
Okay. That's it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
We did it, fans.
We did it. All right, we're rocking and rolling. So Del, look right there.
Yeah, try to look over here.
Let's start over. Okay.
No, you're good.
Hi. You're good girl.
Fix my hair. Make sure I look decent here.
Let's cut that out. That was cheesy.
Again, hot.
Yeah.
Hold, please.
Yeah.